recording.
I'm going to put on my podcast lady voice. Welcome to Rococo Rejects. I'm Bella Allen.
And I'm Veda Stockton. I don't want to use Veda Stockton.
Say
I
Veda
want to be Veda
Lane.
Lane.
Veda Lane, what are you doing? Then be whoever you want to be, girl.
I'm so sorry. So, this is the first episode of the Rococo Rejects Podcast. I am Veda Lane.
I'm Bella Allen.
Why did we choose Rococo? And why are we rejects? We decided that art can sometimes have a tendency to seem so high, and there's a lot of that shit called art speak floating around in the art world. And we'd like to break away from that and just enjoy some of the lessons and the beauty that art can give us, just like the Rococo. We're breaking from the traditional ways of learning about art and just talking, drinking, having fun, eating ice cream, doing a bunch of bullshit.
The way it should be.
Mm-hmm.
So, also, though, I would like to point out that we are both very Rococo people, I would say. We are so into, I think a lot of that went into making this first episode based on Rococo was because we like pastels.
We like pastels.
I love pastels.
I love Marie Antoinette.
Bougie ass, fucking ornamentation everywhere. Basically, this podcast, we just kind of want to break it down to you in college girl terms so people can understand art and have a knowledgeable opinion of art now and not have to listen to it in a boring academic setting.
Yeah. Today we're drinking the cheapest bottle of wine, Cabernet Sauvignon by Frontera. It's apparently award-winning.
Well,
and it's
Frontera is my new best friend.
Frontiers After Dark. It's inspired by the night. Aromas of black fruit and cocoa and a fruit-forward palate.
Cocoa!
We pair with flavorful appetizers, hearty pasta, and grilled red meats.
Oh my god.
Or hazelnut ice cream.
And we are eating Talenti's gelato. It's hazelnut chocolate chip because you can't ever go wrong with some fucking gelato.
No, absolutely not.
So let's get started. What is Rococo? It's also known as late Baroque. Rococo is an 18th century French artistic movement and style. And before we go any further, for audience members or listeners, that's more appropriate of a term, who did not have one of my senior seminar classes this semester, I wrote my entire final paper thinking I was writing it in the 17th century because I thought the 17th century meant
the 1700s?
like this, yeah.
When really the 17th century is the 1600s.
Yeah.
Every time you hear something century, it's the period before that. So we're talking about the 18th century.
But it's in the 1700s.
It's the 1700s.
18th century is 1700s.
Academia wants you to fail.
And life is confusing. Thanks.
So that's where we have that. We're talking about Rococo is in the 1700s, and this is pre-revolutionary France. So the word Rococo, the word is seen as a combination of French rocaille, which means stone, and coquille, shell, due to the reliance on these objects as decorative motifs. And it's also a combination of barocco, which is the Italian word for an irregularly shaped pearl, and the same word rocaille, which is, stone.
Also an interesting tidbit, though, about rocaille that I learned is that the term for Rococo, while it was derived from rocaille, is more specifically rocaille, which was a certain kind of pebble or stone that they would use in these, really elaborate French grottos. I had no idea about that.
It's like garden design.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A little bit, yeah. Well, actually, a lot of it. That's exactly what that is.
It's actually exactly what I'm talking about.
You are correct. Thank you for listening.
At this time, 18th century,
1700s,
France had about 3 times the population of England because no one wants to be in England. And no insult to England.
No,
I actually really want to go to
I actually probably won't go, but it's fine. I support it. I support everyone going to England.
A lot of rain,
a lot of fog.
At this time, France had about 3 times the population of England, which we will say is neither good nor bad. Mm-hmm. And France was also benefiting from the decline of Spain at this time. So during this time, the Palace of Versailles was left by the aristocracy who took up their residence in Paris. A lot of times in Paris, it seems like, not in Paris, but in France, it seems like the aristocracy likes to move around so that revolutions don't happen.
Yep, that seems to be...
They're just kind of running away from their problems, and the Rococo is really a product of running away from your problems.
And you see that a lot when we get more into looking at the pictures. It's definitely, while it is a very, how should I say this? It's a very ornamented art movement, a lot of flowiness, a lot of movement in the pictures. But it was also a little bit controlled at the time, and that kind of reflects Louis XIV's reign, which you'll see, like, you have, like, these impeccably made gardens. And
the French always want to exert control over their surroundings.
Yes. And you can see that a lot when we get into talking about some of the paintings that we're going to look at today.
Yeah, so the aristocracy decides to leave. And the aristocracy of this time had enormous political power and wealth. And this is, like, I know that right now, like, in our political climate, like, we talk about the 1% all the time, but, like, France in the 1700s was, like, truly, like, the 0.0001% of people had all of the wealth. The aristocracy owned over 90% of the nation's wealth, which was pretty much a stark contrast to everyone else who was just kind of living in just kind of grueling pain.
Right.
Suffering.
Poor France.
Poor France.
Vive la France. But also, so going back to the aristocracy comment that you just made, yes, it did own over 90% of the nation's wealth. And so the reason why the Rococo style is seen as so frivolous, not seen as so frivolous, but you see these soft tones and scenes of love, nature, amorous encounters. The most notable or recognizable piece of Rococo art is the famous swing painting with a woman. We'll talk about that later. But at the time in France, since the aristocracy did own over 90% of the nation's wealth, they were the people buying art. So this was really their movement in a way. I mean, they were the ones who were the biggest art buyers in France at the time. So we see a lot of their lifestyle being implemented into these grandeur scenes of love, of being, like, garden scenes are actually very popular with Rococo as well.
Just like subliminal orgies.
Oh, yeah.
Like, constantly.
France.
The Rococo style is also a reaction against the former style of art that comes before the Rococo period. The style that comes before the Rococo period is the Baroque style. If you've seen any art before, if you know of any famous paintings or artists, the Baroque includes artists like Bernini, Caravaggio. These artists that focus on a lot of rigidity, a lot of insane movement and complexity of emotion, but it's also very strict in its regulation and also political, thanks to Catholicism. The Rococo is a reaction against that. And so the Rococo, you see a lot of asymmetrical motifs. You see a lot of asymmetry in just everything. You see a lot of soft colors, soft styles, very soft line work. Whereas the Baroque, you might see, hard contrast. Rococo is more like the...
Would you say it's more
what
rigid?
Instagram filter is it like?
Ooh, that's a good question.
I'd have to look.
I know. Pull up Instagram.
I'm not on Instagram enough.
I know. I only know one. It's Clarendon.
Rococo, in Instagram terms, Rococo would be a little more Nashville on Instagram. Yeah.
Ooh.
And then Baroque would be a little more lo-fi.
I feel...
Par example. I'm sorry.
You guys can't see this, but Veda just tried to show me an example of these filters, and it is a picture of Ryan Gosling from Crazy Stupid Love exposing himself to Steve Carell saying, "Oh, I'm sorry. Is this bothering you?"
It's the last photo my boyfriend sent me.
Okay. True love. Okay.
But yeah, so Rococo's a little more Nashville, Baroque's a little more lo-fi. But Ryan Gosling fits into everything. So
praise Ryan Gosling.
Most Rococo art depicts in soft tones, a lot of pink, a lot of blue. It's really beautiful. Pastels, a lot of things that are popular right now, actually. It depicts scenes of love, nature, amorous encounters, which are often secret. So the Rococo is a really saucy kind of art genre. And it gets criticized a lot by art historians because people say it's really frivolous and there's nothing deeper to it, which is one of the bigger issues surrounding Rococo art and how to study
but it also, we have to think about, like, at the time, though, this was kind of their escape into kind of a perfect lifestyle. Things were arranged so elegantly, and it was so... keep thinking of the word flowy. I don't think flowy is the correct word here, but, like,
it's kind of nihilist. It's very corporeal, like, it's very body focused, and it's very, like... here and now focused.
I mean, yes.
So things... like, there's nothing after we die. It's just the here and now that matters. And you start to focus more on bodily pleasures, wondering, the effects of the cause and effect of if I do this, what happens then? And the Rococo is kind of a signature of nihilism because they do all this art about just the here and now, the bodies, the love affairs that we're having right now.
They're very indulgent.
Yeah, indulgent.
Very
exactly. Indulgence. And then, like, that's such a precursor for the revolution.
Yes.
And, like, so nihilism, not always ending well, but, super bougie.
Me.
Yeah. So if you want to, I will let you digress into teaching me about Rococo architecture because you taught about architecture and I'm doing painting.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. Architecture for me, I really got into it though from our Asian art class that we took because I had no idea that these different buildings were actually being created for societal needs at the time. I don't know. That seems very obvious, but I don't know. I don't think you would like really think. I didn't think that in depthly about it. Like entering an apartment. Things were, even modern day, they are made and created for us, for the people of the time and of the generation.
I think we forget that sometimes.
Like, we definitely
forget that buildings are created for someone to inhabit.
Yes.
Or it's a system of advertisement of the values of a city.
Right. So, talking about architecture with this, at the beginning of the 17th century, there were demands for greater simplicity, greater symmetry, and a distinctly quieter language of form. And again, we're talking about architecture here, not the paintings or costume of Rococo. This was supplemented by the desire for more comfort in hotels and more focuses on the intimate rooms like living rooms instead of building upon the facade of the building. So this was really interesting to me. Because also at the time of Rococo, salons were wildly popular because this Rococo pretty much was aristocratic control in a way. I wouldn't say, I guess control would be the wrong word, but it was definitely
paid for.
So going back to this, so because of this whole salon environment, and salons were these really like bougie fucking meetings between rich ass people. And so from this, we kind of see this happening. There's a shift in architecture and the focus on the living rooms becomes way more important. So we're seeing wider, bigger living rooms because entertainment was super, super important. Great. Important. So, and then they focused less on the exterior of the building for this reason. It was more of the inviting space on the inside. It was more of looking at beautiful gold ornamentations on the walls that if you were to Google Rococo architecture, you'll see exactly what I'm talking about.
Specifically ceilings.
Yeah, ceilings were really heavily decorated.
So good.
So beautiful. An original French style of building was created by the leading, this is very important to know, the leading architect of the age, Jules. If I butcher this name, I'm so sorry. Jules Hardouin. Yes. I can't say that because it's the O, it's like we.
Which one is it?
Hardouin.
Hardouin?
Oh, there we go.
I have no, that's probably wrong still.
Okay, well, sorry, Mansart. That's who we're talking about. And Mansart invented the most effective decorative forms of the Baroque style with structural rigidity of classicism. And here we go back to the Palace of Versailles. Pretty sure he's the dude who did Palace of Versailles. Let me look that up before I say it.
And I've been to the Palace of Versailles. And
Jules,
that place is gorgeous.
My man's Jules Hardouin Mansart. He built it. And this was, okay, so if you want another clarification on the difference between Rococo and Baroque, Mansart did Palace of Versailles. And that's way more structurally rigid.
Yeah, you look at Versailles and that is one big, opulent piece of just...
What a hunk of building.
Exactly. A hunk of building.
In all of his works, Mansart created the foundations for elegant and decorative lines of architecture and the ornamentation of facade by a very carefully considered well-planned division of the rooms. And also, a really interesting tidbit that you learn here about architecture here is through the second group, there's two groups of Rococo artists. And in this second group, because in my notes I didn't write down the first, they're called decorative artists, not truly Rococo, but they are decorative artists and they do work in this time period. They do contribute to the Rococo style. Through their works, though, it becomes very clear that Italian grotesque was the basis of French ornamentation. The ornamentation artists...
what is the Italian grotesque?
I believe that is relating to Italian high art and mannerism.
Oof.
I believe. We see that really taken more seriously in very serious portraits, even though they're meant to reflect a very indulgent scene. scene, as we said before. But yeah, the architecture is crazy. And I remember when I was studying this, I was looking at kind of the floor plans that the Rococo people had. I mean, these living rooms were grandeur. They were huge. And they put a lot of ornamentation in the ceilings. I mean, it was very, very normal to have a mural painted on the top of your wall. I mean,
like you do, you know.
Typical, you know, just flaunt your wealth more. But...
hire someone.
Yeah.
So everything we're gonna post, just information about like the episode and some of the things that we bring up are gonna be available to you so that you're not like scavenging on Google or like going to the library while you listen to us, like just trying to find shit. So.
Right. And we'll try to describe paintings to you like as best as we can as well.
With our limited vocabulary.
Yes. Sorry. Please remember that we are not graduated from college yet. We are in pursuit of art history degrees.
Undergrad. There's probably scholars of Rococo art that are listening to us cringing.
Sorry.
Just
we're learning.
Blood curdling.
Just like like the deepest groan you could ever hear. Like, oh, those girls.
Mansart. What is his name?
Mansart.
Is just rolling
in his
asymmetrical grave. Is that all for the architect?
Yeah.
Okay. So I guess we're going to move towards painting.
Woo, 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 woo.
And I
can help you out a little bit on this one too. I do have a painting section.
Yes, I study more flat things. So
ain't nothing wrong with that, girl.
So the quote-unquote father of Rococo painting, there is a very limited number of women, I just want to add, before I start this, there's a very limited number of women who paint during the Rococo period. Women, we're going to try to include them as much as we can on this podcast.
Oh.
And sometimes it's
Pompadour.
so hard.
Get ready to listen to
Pompadour.
Oh, she's a bad bitch. She's the bad bitch of the century, I tell you what.
So the quote-unquote father of Rococo painting is Jean-Antoine Watteau, who invented the new type of painting scene called fêtes galantes. And fêtes galantes are courtship parties, and this is a very 18th century thing. A little bit of information about the artist. Watteau only lived for 36 years, from 1684 to 1721. So in 36 years, Watteau did more in his life than I've done so far.
Great.
And I just wanted to point that out.
Okay.
He was the son of a roofer, and although his origins in painting are obscure, he may have begun his trade by recreating copies of devotional paintings. So devotional paintings are paintings for devotional purposes. Typically, they include the Madonna, the Jesus, or the saints. Is that correct?
I believe
for devotional paintings? Something you're devoted to, but it's very Catholic. So that's what I think at least devotional is. So he was the son of a roofer. He begun his trade by creating copies of devotional paintings. So I'm assuming that he really gained credit off of Catholics coming in, paying money for these devotionals. Later, after doing these devotional paintings around 1705, he began working with Claude Guillot and Claude Audouin III. Claude Guillot worked in comic scenes inspired by Commedia dell'arte. And would you like to explain a little about?
But I will.
Bella did an interesting paper at first. A very, like to say the least, an interesting paper on
Commedia
dell'arte and the Venetian Masquerade last semester. And it was, we had to write 25 page papers. And
mine ended up being 25
she
pages.
brought it to me to edit. Like, we edited it for like, that's a weird word, edited. Yeah. But we edited it for like...
I would say
4 hours.
Maybe
4
a
hours,
little
yeah.
more. I remember I left your apartment at 12, and I got here at like... Yeah, I was here for a fucking minute.
Yeah,
Jesus
a fucking minute.
Christ.
Because we were editing that thing so meticulous.
Okay, sorry, back on track. Venetian masking, Commedia dell'arte. So I learned a lot about Commedia dell'arte because I focused on masking practices with Carnival and in Venice because I'm actually moving to Florence in less than 2 weeks.
And I get to stay here.
And Veda gets to stay here
and
graduate college.
I'm not going to celebrate with you because I get to stay here.
But she gets to graduate college. Hopefully.
Yeah. Hopefully.
21 semester hours, this girl. Crazy. It's your last semester. You're supposed to be chill.
You're supposed to be chill. And I was like, no, I'm
Veda. I'm going to amp this shit up.
I'm Veda. Nothing can be easy.
It's like a perfect what you're describing.
Yeah. Basically.
It's not an insult at all.
Okay, so Commedia dell'arte.
All right.
What is it for our listeners?
Commedia dell'arte was it was a masked theater performance that I believe originated. Well, it has heavy history in Italy, but they actually got the ideas of Commedia dell'arte from Rome and Greece and Grecian theater, spectacle, all that fun shit.
As everything else.
Everything's from
Italy got
Greece,
it from
dude.
Greece.
Everything is from Greece.
And now Greece is broke. And all their art's in Britain.
Really?
Yeah, the Elgin Marbles.
Oh, shit.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that. Okay.
Dude.
Where have I been?
England, whatever that empire is, gentrification station. Like, they stole
station.
everything. They took the mummies, they took the marbles, they took the carpets.
Wait, I had no idea. What the fuck?
Yeah.
But Commedia dell'arte, mass theater, it was really popular in Italy, but then it kind of moved over to France, and it became even more popular in France, and I believe, don't quote me on this, but I do believe that it reached more of a height in popularity in France.
It seems like it would.
It was way more popular in France.
Would you say that
18th.
Commedia dell'arte, for those who have seen The Labyrinth, would you say Commedia dell'arte looks akin to the scene in The Labyrinth where there's the masquerade ball and David Bowie is like coming out towards that young poor actress with his two different colored eyes?
Definitely, just from like looking
So
at
here, like right here, and like the creepy
absolutely.
and there's like all
I
the
would
masks.
say that is a little bit more. That's wavering a little bit onto Dodo gambling masks.
Yeah.
And just like the aristocracy.
Have you seen The Labyrinth?
Yes, I have. I just don't. It's been a minute.
If I was that young, David Bowie honestly like brought me into womanhood. Like is the best way that I can say it, because like
Jennifer Connelly is a goddess in this movie though.
I
I saw this movie when I was a young girl, and I looked kind of like her because I have the dark hair.
Yeah.
And that was the first girl I was like, oh,
yeah.
I can act.
It was a
I
combination.
look like her. Kind of, not anymore, but I
It was
used
a
to.
combination when I first watched it of David Bowie and what was her name again?
Jennifer Connelly.
That brought me into womanhood, because I watched that movie and my grandmother was with me and she was like, David Bowie just has the nicest legs. And from then on, I was fucked. So,
Okay, sorry.
back to...
Wait, off track. We barely talked about Commedia dell'arte, but honestly, for Rococo, doesn't matter. Just here to say, Commedia dell'arte... We'll probably do an episode going really in depth on what we did for that. But for basis level knowledge, Commedia dell'arte, mass performances, and you would have different stock characters in these performances.
Just Venice.
Just Venetian carnival.
Venetian, masky.
Just carnivals, drinking, and indulgence. That seemed to be a really big theme in the 18th century.
That weird movie from the 60s you showed us a preview of in class, and that guy was like fucking that girl, but like she had her up like a wheelbarrow.
Dude, I watched that trailer 2 seconds before I walked into class, and I was like, no! I could tell! I was sitting there at the fucking podium, and I was like, oh my. I was like, Bella, sit the fuck down. You idiot! And like my our professor was just sitting there like, oh, yeah. And, oh, yeah.
I could tell how horrified you were. Like, I could tell that this was like an unintended consequence of your presentation.
I was like, at least it captured the lifestyle, right?
It truly did, and I really want to see that movie.
I still have yet to see it.
Back to Jean-Antoine Watteau, when we're talking about Commedia dell'arte. I already said around 1705 he began working with Claude Guillot, and Claude Guillot worked on comic scenes inspired by the Commedia dell'arte. So you can imagine now Commedia dell'arte in comic scenes. And it took that long to describe it. So, through these two painters and a foundation in devotional painting, Watteau was able to mature and create a style of theatrical opulence. Watteau was accepted into the French Academy in 1712, and his art fit into no prescribed type of painting. Therefore, he gained the title, quote-unquote, painter of fête galante. His most notable painting, and an example of fête galante, is the Pilgrimage to the Island of Cythera. And this painting's in the Louvre if you want to go to that nightmare of a museum.
Just hop on a plane and go. Spend like $700. Go fucking look at it.
And this is one of his first paintings. It depicts amorous couples partaking in various stages of a journey to the mythical island of Cythera. A note on Cythera, for those who don't know, because I definitely didn't know.
I definitely don't know.
Yeah. Cythera was the birthplace of Aphrodite, goddess of love, also known as Venus. When you think of Cythera, think of the mess that was Venus's birth. From the foam of the water, naked on a seashell, romanticized by every painter in the history of mankind.
That is probably the hallmark of classicism.
Hallmark of art history
of
in the
West. And I mean, it's
a naked woman on a seashell.
Are we talking about Botticelli's?
Yeah.
Yeah. That shit is... I mean, I'm not a
still
fan
beautiful. Seen it in person.
I'm not a fan of classicism, personally.
Get close enough to that brushwork.
But that painting is phenomenal. Yeah. Like, you can't say that it's bad. It's rendered perfectly for the vision. Botticelli's a genius, though. So
yeah, Botticelli is a breathtaking artist. Mm-hmm. So yeah, Cythera is the birthplace of Aphrodite, goddess of love. So these couples are on their way either to or from. No one's really exactly sure, but it is this process of love is what's being depicted. So the painting may have been inspired by French opera. The Louvre website actually has a really good quote on the composition of the painting. The Louvre describes this. It says like Watteau took 5 years to complete this large painting, which he submitted to the Royal Academy of Painting and Sculpture as his reception piece. So his first little thing.
Damn.
The reason it took him so long was at the same time he was also working on the private commissions. He was given approval to submit the painting in 1712, but only actually submitted it in 1717, which sounds like some procrastinating shit to me.
That's like me in that fucking paper.
Yeah, that sounds like procrastinating shit. In antiquity, Cythera, one of the Greek islands, was thought to have serious claim to be the birthplace of Aphrodite, goddess of love. The island thus became sacred to Aphrodite and love. The painting may have been inspired by certain 17th century operas. Remember, that's the 1600s. Or possibly a comedy by Dancourt entitled The Three Cousins, performed in 1700. Watteau's masterpiece is an allegory of courtship and falling in love. The first couple is sitting absorbed in flirtatious conversation. They're next to a second pair who are just standing up, while a third pair are heading for the ship. The young woman is looking back in nostalgia at the place where she has spent so many happy hours. In the distance, a number of figures are climbing aboard a superb ship with cherubs hovering overhead. Critics have always admired the highly rhythmical structure of the painting, the subtle sense of continuity between the groups of figures, the vibrancy of the brushstrokes, and the beautiful colors. Without doubt, the mysterious hazy landscape in the distance is one of the most innovative features of the painting, reflecting the influence of landscapes of Rubens and Leonardo da Vinci.
Quite enchanting.
I think hazy is a good way to describe the entire painting because you can't really see anything. You just kind of see like a misty conglomeration of events happening.
Oh, that's nice. That's a really good description. Yeah. I suppose we should talk about Fragonard. I would like to start out. We can't really talk about Rococo without talking about the bourgeoisie. Mm-hmm. Okay? And before we go into Fragonard, let me pour wine real quick. So, bourgeoisie, let's talk about... I do think it is important to note that a bourgeoisie trait emerged in the French art sphere with the help of two other painters, Jean-Simeon Chardin and Jean-Baptiste Greuze. And Chardin was one of the most important colorists of the 18th century. His pieces were absolutely amazing. I mean... I
have not seen them. Let me...
Go look it up. It's
what was it?
Quite amazing. Just look up Chardin. Just look up Chardin. Yep, paintings.
Oh, just Chardin.
Just Chardin. Look at that.
Oh, shit, yeah.
Look at that. I mean, his work...
Look at those peaches.
Right? Yeah. And also, so for viewers...
Sexy peaches.
Rococo, while it is often associated with these bright pastel colors, it is also very common to see Rococo rendered paintings with a black or often dark background. The way you would tell if it was Rococo or not was if like the main subject of the painting, the way it is rendered and colored. So like Which one? Let's pick one to talk about.
Let's go with the cat, I guess.
Okay, yeah, let's go with
the
cat.
cat.
So
there's this cat that knows it's doing something wrong.
It's doing a naughty thing.
It knows it's stealing that fish.
So if you were to see this based on what we were talking about, I don't think you would associate it with Rococo at all.
No, I wouldn't.
No.
Honestly, like, I wouldn't know what
this
to
looks a little Baroque.
With.
A little Baroque, a little, I wouldn't say neoclassical. I guess just more kind of...
A tiny bit realist.
Yeah.
Tiny bit. Yeah.
That's a good, yes. But this is Rococo. This is Chardin, and he was a successor of Fragonard. So that's how we kind of know this whole thing. From looking at that picture, so we see there's a very dark background, kind of a muted brown color going on. Doesn't mean it's not Rococo. What makes it Rococo, I would say, is the coloration of the cat and this pastel fleshy pink going on.
The color of the fish is really what does it to me.
Yes, and you can really see why he's called one of the most important colorists and influential colorists of the 18th century.
I mean, his like rendering, watercolor type, like this, the fish on the left,
this glowing, the glowing.
He
that's
almost
coming
looks
off.
like he's transparent.
Yes,
and I think that there's like a really, even though they work in oil, there's almost this watercolor, seemingly like aspect to Rococo art.
Yes.
That even though it's oils, it looks like watercolor. Like it looks like something that could just dissolve.
And I think that really speaks to the whole style of Rococo in general. I mean, we have this flowiness, this watercolor-esque kind of component in these paintings, and I think that speaks a lot to Rococo. I mean, that is kind of what Rococo is. It's like this very flowy grandeur, soft scenes, love, nature. It's got all of this, all things associated with movement and beautiful movement.
And Fragonard really capitalizes on that. He was an awesome painter, but also, like everyone else ever that's good at something, he wasn't recognized until post-mortem. Yep. So
I mean, I think that's the case with all artists, though. I mean,
a lot of people, like, you just have to like die young and then hope. He so Jean-Honoré Fragonard was not realized until after his death, but he trained under the famous Francois Boucher. He is the most famous for the swing. The swing right now is in the Wallace collection in London. The painting was commissioned by a gentleman of the court desiring a painting of him and his mistress.
Ooh.
Which is a clandestine relationship.
Very.
It includes a young woman being pushed by an older man on the most opulent swing I've ever seen in my life.
It's absolutely beautiful, guys. It's I totally, look at it on our
little
Tumblr.
red cushion.
It's it's so lush. The scene is so lush and so
She looks like
Rococo.
A cupcake.
She looks like a happy little frosted butterfly with sprinkles. I don't know.
That's exactly what she looks like.
But, okay, so what's interesting, so Fragonard was kind of like a naughty little boy. Little bit.
Always.
What I found really interesting about this, though, so you know how, like, in the picture, she's swinging towards the person that she is having an affair with the other person pushing her, totally unknowing. Yeah. And I believe it's a priest, actually, who is pushing her. Yeah,
there's evidence that, like, the original person that commissioned it wanted the man behind her to be a priest to make fun of him somehow. But Fragonard ignored that request and just, like, kept with the main theme.
But you can see, if you go and look at the picture, there's kind of, like, a ghostly presence right below her feet, I believe. Yeah. And it's a little haunting. So this whole point of this picture, the story behind it is this female is swinging. She's being pushed by an older gentleman who, unbeknownst of the fact that there is a gentleman hiding in the bushes, looking up this woman's skirt when she's swinging.
Absolutely looking up her skirt.
She is. There's no debate about it. But what's interesting about this, and which makes this a little dirtier, was in the 18th century, French women didn't wear undergarments.
Oh, shit.
So he saw everything.
So another, one part of this painting that I thought was really cool was a swing in Rococo period France, like so in the 18th century, is a symbol of infidelity. So,
that's
which
interesting,
makes
but that
sense
makes
because you swing.
Sense.
You swing back and forth. You swing between two men. You swing between two women. You swing between...
Right, and I mean, that's exactly what she is doing.
And she's swinging between two men.
She is, and they both don't know about the other person.
Yeah, on this very treacherously thin branch.
Yes.
I don't think that branch can hold up her dress.
She looks light as a feather, though. That's what I'm saying. Like, Fragonard's, oh my gosh, like...
He makes her look so light.
The movement in this painting is absolutely phenomenal.
We're just gushing over this shit.
Yeah, I really do. Just the color of her dress is just absolutely... You see this little...
shoe.
That's amazing.
That tiny shoe.
I have, honestly.
Look at that little foot and the shoe.
Look at the cherub right there. This cherub sculpture. That's amazing.
And he's got his finger up, like, up to his mouth, so he's, like,
He's, like, shushing them a little bit.
He's like, shut the fuck up about this.
From looking at this, though, her dress, honestly, this is a stretch, but this is just from pure observation.
Yeah.
It reminds me of a rose.
Oh, yes. Absolutely.
Like or a petal of some sort. I mean, this, like, she kind of looks like she's, like, embodying a flower.
Like, she's very floral, and there are a lot of floral motifs that inundate Rococo art. Just beautifully. Like, Rococo painters are so good at rose petals, and it's so beautiful.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think that goes into play with the Rococo's theme of softer designs and more modest materials, and really, like, branching away from Baroque.
Yeah. So Fragonard's style of painting was very well received. Obviously, like, as we are gushing over this painting, so was everyone else.
Yeah, we're not the only ones. And you'll see it too. And it's amazing.
Yeah, so it was really well received as a blending of, like, Dutch landscape and a softer Baroque style. So going back to that idea of, like, the Rococo being a rejection of the Baroque, people saw this as a soft Baroque because there are those dark backgrounds, there's, like, that high contrast, yet there's this softness to it that is just so sublime. It's so beautiful.
There is something to say, though, too, because Fragonard's successor, Chardin, he was also really, really influenced by Dutch paintings. And I think that's something to speak on. I don't know. I just think both of them are very... Like, all of this is pretty much influenced by some of the Dutch scenes that we see. Mm-hmm. And, I don't know. Chardin really honed in on this. And, I mean, we looked at a couple Chardin images earlier. And, I mean, you really start to see this in his paintings.
Yeah.
You see a lot of Dutch conventions kind of put into this. And we'll have an episode about Dutch.
So if viewers want to see... an interpretation, like a good, like, something I really appreciate, and what I'm
glad
really
you mentioned this. Yeah,
yes,
this is great.
I just watched this movie recently.
I wanted to watch it before coming to discuss this with you because I didn't want to seem stupid.
Yeah, so for viewers who really want to see, like, a great modern interpretation of Rococo art, Rococo culture, Marie Antoinette, all this bougie shit, and a lot of, like... This movie really interprets to the greatest extent in today's terms, in a modern context, what the Rococo would have been like and what that lifestyle would have been like. Mm-hmm. So it's literally just called Marie Antoinette, isn't it?
Yeah, and
it's by Sophia.
Keira Knightley in it.
Keira Knightley, isn't it? No, it's it's that actress that I don't like all the time, but I like her sometimes.
No, I think it's Keira Knightley.
It's not.
What?
Kirsten Dunst.
Oh!
It's Kirsten Dunst.
Fuck.
So
Okay.
it's Marie Antoinette.
Sorry.
It's from 2006. It is classified under Google as romance/history. It's 2 hours. It's a 55% on Rotten Tomatoes, but I rated it 100% because I could watch that movie forever.
The decoration is insane.
The costume design, everything is absolutely wonderful, and it really depicts to a great extent the fact that Marie Antoinette was a fucking teenager for most of her life.
Yes, that's something that a lot of people do not realize. Marie Antoinette was a teenager, people.
The good die young.
Always.
Yeah. So that's a good representation of the Rococo. Like, all the fucking pastels and, like, the really emo music that is played during that movie. It's really great. As I said before, the curvaceous, delicate, decorative nature of the Rococo art led to criticism about the Rococo and the period lacking depth and being purely about fashion and wit. Anti-political and flirtatious, the Rococo has been deemed superficial, but it remains a distinguished feature in the development of European art. So, like, you're still going to see between the Baroque and the Enlightenment, the Rococo, because
absolutely,
it's still essential. Despite the fact that people believe it's superfluous, it is still essential to the development of European art. And towards the
quite
end,
necessary to study, I would like to add.
Absolutely.
I mean, I don't know, do you think Rococo would have been popular without these artists? I mean, do you think, like, what makes Rococo stand out? Like, why was it... Because there have been tons of art movements that aren't as well received as Rococo. Why do you think it was something...
I think that culture, like... We naturally fluctuate between this obsession with the corporeal, with this obsession with our daily lives. So like when you think about it, you have the Rococo, you have Impressionism, you have contemporary art right now. You have all of these time periods which celebrate art as an indication of our ability to be pompous as shit.
Yeah!
And then right after that, like you always have like these opposing features.
For an art history timeline though, I would like to say it's Baroque, and then we go into Rococo, and then it's Neoclassicism,
Yes.
and then Romanticism.
Yes.
Sorry.
No, you're good.
If I am one of those people who I really need to just literally just spell out.
It's hard to keep shit organized.
It is really hard, so I'll say it again. It's Baroque comes first, and then it goes into Rococo, and then we have Neoclassicism, which is exactly what you think that is, which is just a new classicism. And Romanticism.
So yeah, like I think that like even without these artists, I think that the Rococo, it's still a period of art. It's still something that's like rejecting what came prior to it. It's rejecting like the highly political. It's people wanting an escape.
I think you're right. I think this is definitely, I think the artists really helped pull this off. I mean, this is the first time, I don't want to say first time ever, but this is one of the first times that we see an art movement based on societal needs and based on this kind of escape factor.
Yeah. Highly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's important to know. I mean, I think, yes, frivolous in some ways. I wouldn't say completely frivolous because we're talking about it right now as a podcast and discussing it. So, I mean, is it really?
Is it really frivolous? I don't think so. Like, I think that the content could be frivolous, but I think there's something to be said about, like, why we want to depict things that are frivolous. Like, what is the human condition that makes us want to depict these things?
And I think because of Baroque and the art movements before and how seriously it was taken, I think it's absolutely necessary to have a Rococo in art history.
Relax.
They needed an outlet. They needed something where it was just like, geez, I don't want to be judged. I don't want to be like, I just want to draw what I want to draw. I know I asked you that question, but it was more of like, we want to discuss this with you guys and like get you guys to understand like this is important. While if you were to take an art history class, it is definitely this Rococo subject.
Yeah.
Definitely is seen as frivolous and it's taught as frivolous. But as we were just saying, I mean, I'm not completely convinced.
Yeah, I'm not completely convinced. But I can't see.
I see it and I see it in the content. Yes, the content is, but like if you think about it more like in a metaphysical way or in a more psychological way, I mean, this was really a beautiful, beautiful time period in art. And I mean, you kind of see these artists like Watteau, Boucher, they are churning out some incredibly done.
You can't devalue an artwork just based
on content.
Because these artworks are absolutely beautiful. But you can also see, I'm not going to ignore the fact that this is happening right on the cusp of the French Revolution, and you can definitely see why there was a general disdain for the upper classes and why 18th century France turned into a revolution.
Yes.
Like, you can see why they get serious again is because it gets so unserious. It because it's because the 0.001% decides that they want all this shit on the backs of the proletariat, which is a very politically strong word to use. That's the best word.
Marxist.
It's very Marxist to use that, but you can definitely
it's
see why there's
revolution.
True,
yes, absolutely. So, do we have any more paintings to talk about? Or
we still have to talk about Louise. So, So the story of Mary Louise O'Murphy from 1752. This is painted by Francois Boucher, and we've already talked about him a little bit, but now we're actually going to talk about him. He was the popular painter admired by the main mistress of Louis XV, Madame de Pompadour, a wild figure in her own right. And this painting, as we will post, is an extremely eroticized painting of a girl splayed on a daybed. It depicts the child courtesan Mademoiselle O'Murphy, and she was about 14 at the time and soon to be the mistress of Louis XV. And I know people died early, but that's a little early.
That's crazy early.
That's crazy early. I can't fucking imagine. In 1753, the Marquis d'Argenson wrote in his diary, "The king had a new mistress. She belonged to a family of prostitutes and thieves." So if that gives you any inclination of who Louise O'Murphy turned out to be in the court, you'd be exactly right. I mean, she didn't steal shit.
Right.
That we know of.
Yeah. She probably did.
She probably did. I'd be stealing the silver.
I would be too. Mm-hmm. She got painted at 14 years old, fucking naked.
You get painted naked.
Paint me like one of your French girls.
Paint me like one of your French girls.
Dead ass!
That's exactly what they meant.
Dead ass!
Is Louise O'Murphy.
Fucking Louise O'Murphy, dude.
And every woman in the 19th century.
All of them.
So I've also read, I did a little bit of research on this, and the background is imbued with life, as if mimicking the narrative of Jupiter impregnating a nymph in the form of a cloud or shower of gold. So when you look at this painting surrounding this girl who is laying on her stomach on a daybed, and there is this just amazing amount of gold drapery around her, and there's that myth about Zeus who impregnates a woman by a golden shower, which we're not going to get into.
But yeah, also
so this background is imbued with more life, arguably, than the subject of the painting, which is Louise.
Yes,
and she is viewed as possibly an object. She's facing away. She's looking away. She's splayed out. That pillow is absolutely just...
She's not in a comfortable position. She's ready to get fucked.
That's
honestly what it looks like to me.
That's not what I look like when I'm studying. That's not what I look like when I just want to rest.
Nope.
I lay on my back like a starfish.
This bitch is spread eagle right now.
Yeah, spread eagle.
She's
absolutely.
Downward spread eagle. But
so yeah, that's exactly what it is. And she's just... I mean, that doesn't, like, downplay her intelligence in history or anything. I mean, she was painted at 14. She became very successful in the court. And she ended up being married to and successful with another man other than the king.
But look at her right leg. It just looks so...
disjointed.
Lifeless.
It looks like it's coming straight out of her butt.
It looks lifeless. It really
like,
it's depleted of all care. It's just
if her entire body is not asleep, I'm surprised. like can you imagine being in that position? Like, my whole body would fall asleep.
How's that gelato? How's that melted gelato?
Wow, it's like at that perfect point between like frozen and melted that like you can like dip your spoon in, pull it out, and it's like a good temperature for like
really good.
Your dry throat.
Yeah, this is good for a sore throat.
Yeah, exactly.
What is hazelnut?
It's what's in Nutella. We're recording it, apparently. There's no battery.
So, on that note, I think it's a safe time to end the episode. I think we've gone over a lot of really important things. So, for our listeners, I'm just going to say a couple fast facts about Rococo to kind of sum up what we've been talking about this entire time. So let's just remember, Rococo painting originated in the early 18th century Paris, is characterized by soft colors, curvy lines, and depicts scenes of love, nature, amorous encounters, and lighthearted entertainment with youth. In addition to this, that's also we see more softer designs, more modest materials than that of the king's grand Baroque style. Instead of precious metals and rich colors, the French aristocracy now lived in a very intricate interiors, made with stucco adornments, daisries, and mirrored glass. Style is characterized by asymmetry. This new style is characterized by asymmetry, graceful curves, elegance, and the delightful new paintings of daily life and courtly love. And it was really known for elegantly dressed figures gathered in outdoor spaces and exchanging pleasantries and engaging in music. Do you have anything to add to that?
Just bougie, pink,
rented,
money, and sex affair, secret sex,
y'all. Rococo. Thanks for listening. Please check out our Facebook page for some updates, and check out our Tumblr page. Give us the Tumblr, Veda. What is it called?
Oh, it's actually just Rococo Rejects. Somehow Tumblr.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah,
okay.
Somehow so like the URL, like it was just available. Rococo Rejects.
So rococorejects.tumblr.com for the pictures for episode 1. Be sure to update that soon.
We're also gonna just put cool shit on there.
Yeah, we're gonna put a lot of cool shit on there, so just get ready for that.
Yeah.
And yeah, we'll see you next episode. Thanks for listening.
Thank you for listening, and comment whether or not you think Rococo art is worth studying in history, whether or not Rococo art is superfluous, whether or not it is actually as frivolous as historians think. So thank you for listening.
Thank you.